the way he sang the tefillah. I remember the Ehrlichkeit of this Yid is English Shire. Many years ago in the Svardish Shul, there was a question about a certain chazonim, a few different chazonim, whether we should take them or not take them. Some of the chazonim had questionable background, very ehrlich, very fine at the time when we saw them, but they had questionable backgrounds. And there was a big machlokes in the shul to take them or not to take them. And the questionable background was, the nisyonis of chazonim, especially in those days, the daven in shul are not ehrlich, they're not frum. And the question was, do we take it or not? Of course, the majority of the people said, take them, take them, take them. They have beautiful voices. What are you looking for a chazan? Unfortunately nowadays, except for somebody with a voice, and we should be looking for much more than that. And Shimon came over to me and he said to me, listen, these chazanim that we're talking about, my friends, I know them. But how are you going to justify taking a chazan like this, where there's so many ehrlich chazanim who gave up their job, who gave up their panosa, who gave up their livelihood because they wanted to be in an ehrlich seviva, they wanted to daven in the front of the smedrish. They could have also fallen into the same kind of nisyonis. How would you justify it to them if you take somebody who's stuck in maybe ehrlich now, but at that time was questionable? What are you going to do with all these momois and nefesh? Is that the kind of message the Svardish Yeshua wants to send? And that tipped the scale for the ehrlich chazunim. It shows exactly how ehrlich he was. The Torah tells us Pashas Yisoy had 7 names. One of the names was Yisoy. His name was Yesed. Why is it called Yisoy? She'isa Pasha Echad the Torah of Atatechsa. And he added another parsha in the Torah of Atatechsa, and therefore his name was Yisoy, the added a vav. And then, listen, if you take a look, you have to think to yourself, why did we choose the word vav? Avram had a word there, a letter there.
I don't normally speak in English. Because the sun set, I will just say over in English, if just a very short summary. I don't want to keep the item up there, Shabbos. But we were discussing the minyan, just two points to repeat it. One was that Chayvev, that Chazan Kugel loved the Torah, not just listen to the Torah. Listening is one thing, Yoitze gewesen. But Chayvev is a Lushal Chibur, he loved something. It's what he loved Chazunas, and he loved Negina. He loved the Torah Kedosha. He had a Goytze Haba, that's Chayvev. The Oitze from Yer Shemayim, that we spoke about, the pshat is, why does the Kosh Baruch Hu have its Oitze only in Yer Shemayim? What about there's something else? Because Hakla B'dei Shemayim puts me Yer Shemayim. Everything is in the hands of the Weinschlein. It's Yer Shemayim. That is left over for the human beings. That's our job here in this world. To listen to the Torah Kedosha, to amass Torah mitzvahs, amass of Torah. My line like Kosh Baruch Hu Oitze Yer Shemayim Balvad. The Weinschlein counts what's his treasure. The treasure of the Weinschlein is the mitzvahs that we encompass and we do l'shem Shemayim. I spent many a time schmoozing Nifta Flangior, and very interesting things, where he came, how he grew up, South Africa, I believe it was, then he went to school, he came to America. But the one thing that was common throughout his life was he didn't forget from where he came and what his purpose was in this world. And as was discussed before, Chazunim have special nisyonis, especially he had a talent. But his talent was twofold. It wasn't only Chazunis, it was Negina. He was able to do both things. Heimish Negina, Siddish Negina, and Chazunish Shtekler. Everything was a cowboy. And Pushit was very geschmack to listen to. He had a Matuna Kushboki, and I'm sure he worked very hard to develop it. It doesn't happen just with the Matuna like anything else a person has. I'm not a big man, I'm not into Chazonish Yunim, but I can appreciate it. And this was Chazan Kugel. But his Yer Shemayim went along with him, no matter wherever he was, in whichever situation. So B'maila, he was Oymed Ben Nesoy. Baruch Hashem, he left over Shaina Pairis, Agididor, Shloima, Newman, the daughters. Zeitma, in the Pairis, it reflects what the person is. That was his nachas, and that was his joy, and it can say the kinderlich and the einiglich, and so on. And as discussed, I'm not going to repeat it, he had a feel everything that concerned Yiddishkeit, and he didn't want to compromise on anything. He had his dayas, and he stuck to it, whether it was popular or it wasn't popular. Das heißt der Ehrlich ist bei Meile, ist mit der schweren Herz, wird ins Haus fehlen, der Wohl schon mal mir nehmen und die Friede schmissen, alle Menschen mal, schnell. Wenn ein sagt, als ein Mensch nicht gesinnt, hat man noch Zeit zu gesegnen sich. Kann man sich denn gesegnen von der Tat nicht möglich, die Gedienen. Aber in dem Fall ist weg. Weil man sucht in den Minuten. Die Zeit Leute, das ist eine Schieke. Bei einem ist es schon gibt. Aber die Sprüche sind es sehr weit, für die Gitte Freund. Wobei ich dir helfen, als man so kennen, Keuches, den Verlust zu verdeihen, seine Gitte Peter, für die Sprüche, für die Kinder, für die Einiglich, für alle Gitte Freund, für Toch Weiß, wo es gefunden sind, du Beit Mechile, aannemen, die alle Jediden, das verdrängt mit dem. In heute wird gewähnt, ein Schliach Zibbe, macht man immer Schliach Zibbe, also losbeten, fragt Sach, der Minion von Zipische, die Schie hat gehofft, auf den Mashiach, fragt sich so allemal, wo ist jetzt das so von der ganzen Masse, es gibt ein anderer Reiz, nur der Goyal Zedig. Es ist Erev Shabbos ist das Schie, was der Mensch geht weg, kommt schon diese Eulam, Shekilei, Shabbos, soll sein, Schliach Zibbe, man soll suchen, was jüdische Kinder machen mit, was haben mitgemacht und was macht mit. Jeder eine hat schon ein Päckchen, jeder eine wartet schon auf der Goyal Zedig, soll uns helfen, Hoch Hashem, Dimmer, Palpunem, und so ich sagen zu der Gile, und allgemeine auch.
Amen. Die gewaltige Schake. It's not something that you expected. Dann kommst du da die fertigste Nacht und du siehst die richtige Kinder. A person goes away from this world, such a, especially when he is so close.
Just like that, you didn't make a big deal out of it. And I was blown away and said, everybody should know this story. He was telling me that he was, back in the 60s, he was in England, and he was performing in one of these Jewish clubs, and somebody heard him. This person was the father of a big promoter, a producer of some Jewish Sachen, and he said, you have to meet my son, because he's going to make you big. And my father had a meeting with him, and he went down to the meeting, and the guy signed a contract for him for 5 years. He says, you're going to be the next thing, big thing in England and in the world, because he was the head of the Beatles. He says, you're going to be, Simon, the next big thing. And my father recorded an LP, a small little LP. He recorded by a famous composer. And he was going to represent England in the Eurovision, which was, it's like the biggest thing in Europe. It's the biggest thing that everybody watches, that everybody listens, every country sends the best song, and he was going to be there presenting England. And he's going to become famous and rich. And then it turns out that the main rehearsals falls on Shabbos. And then he finds out more, that most of the gigs, most of the things that go on happen on Shabbos, and he's not able to maybe keep kosher. And he came back to Brian Epstein, and he told him, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. I can't. And Brian said, listen, I'm not telling you what to do, but the next 5 years you're going to have to forget about everything. But then you'll be able to donate to your synagogues and charities and do whatever you want. And my father says, no. And after that, right after that, he decided to commit his life only to Jewish music, and only to sing Hasidic music, and to be Mikal Doilom, to Yiddishkeit. And he succeeded in that. That song and that singer, by the way, was sung by another guy who won the competition, and he became a huge big guy. My father became even bigger because he chose the right way. He chose Yiddishkeit. He chose the Torah. He chose to bring up a family with the right values of Torah and Yiddishkeit. It wasn't just that, but the principles.
When times were tough, he would never give up his frumkeit. He would never sell his soul for money. My father was a person who lived every day and believed in Mashiach. Mashiach could come at any moment. Any moment. That's how he lived his life. He was always talking about Mashiach and how it would be when Mashiach would come. Tiasa Mason. That's how he lived his life. That's what he saw. That's the future. He wanted to live to see Mashiach.
B'ma'alois kedoshim u'tehoerim kezohar rokiah meirim u'mazehirim leni shemat neim zemirot Yisrael החזן הדגול רב שמעון בן שלמה חיים שהולך לו אלוהו